Oi, it's Lady Flo. Bon dia, beautiful people, on this glorious morning on Valentines. You are the heart of YouTube, beating both sides of the story. While the media focuses on only Gypsy's side, it's YouTube looking at Dee Dee's legacy, putting a spotlight on Nick as well. And you are the reason we're here. So on this glorious Valentine's Day, our hearts are gathered in one. Let's talk about Dee Dee. Sending Valentine love to up above. Hopefully she's looking down at us right now and just really proud that finally just the tip of her story is coming to the surface on YouTube. Now, there are other YouTubers talking about this. I watched a clip from Ivory Rose, and she makes a very good point. Let's watch.
Can you please tell me about her being caught in a hotel room? VisionCon. She went missing. She was there with Dee Dee. David Blanchard was there. Dan was there. There was a whole group of people that were there. They frequented these cons. And apparently that Gypsy went missing. Dee Dee and all of her friends were looking for her, and she was caught in upstairs because it was held in one of the rooms in the hotel. She was caught upstairs with, I believe it was, Jackie, 5 or 6 men. I think it was 6 men. She was caught upstairs where there was a big scene made. Dee Dee was flipping out. Yes, that's the story.
Holy moly. Steamy, right? Girl had 6 guys. Talk about a romantic steam sesh. You know, we're not into Gypsy's love life. Like, in reality, people have their own curiosities. There are people who like that. I mean, most girls, 1 or 2 guys is enough, but there are people who are into it. We're not here to judge that. We're here to point out Dee Dee. What Dee Dee did in her response, why she had that response, what happened. So the scene is this. Gypsy's at a convention, hundreds of people. She's in the first 1 or 2, 3 rows. The whole convention is clapping for her. Her name is being called on a microphone, Gypsy Rose, and all to remember, whatever. They're all dressed up, and she's wearing the wig. She looks pretty. She's being given awards, and this happened multiple times. It was like Girl Scouts, but for adults, but like for cosplay and conventions. So that's the scene. They had a large group of connections there. Dee Dee did, and Gypsy did. People that they traveled with, people that they were in hotels with, people they were going to cosplay conventions and dressing up to match with. So it wasn't just like, see, this is the scene Gypsy tells the media. It's like, oh, my mom and I went to this convention or with friends, and I left. My mom freaked out and came and find me. That's what she tells everyone. But in reality, what happened is they're at a convention in a hotel. It's upstairs. The convention's downstairs. They're in a group, hundreds of people who have been clapping. Gypsy's a high focus of this group. They all know her. They all are keeping an eye on her, and they all kind of watch out for her. So you had a group. Imagine Dee Dee's at this convention. She knows Gypsy. She knows Gypsy Gyp. And, but then people start coming up to her. Dee Dee, where's Gypsy? Oh, she's probably around here somewhere. She's got that Bayou accent. She's probably around here somewhere. And then, but then another person comes up, and then another person comes up, and then a group comes up to you. It's like, Dee Dee, we looked around. We have not seen Gypsy for a while. Like, we've all looked for her, and we're kind of freaking out. So now Dee Dee's got to deal with it. She knows Gyp. She knows Gyp, sneaking off at every opportunity. In my opinion, and in other people's opinions on YouTube, Dee did not care about Gypsy having dick. Okay, let's just say that. I don't like using that word, but that's what the story is being said. There are large YouTubers saying, Gypsy unalived her mom for dick. No, guys. Dee, knew this was Gypsy from the jump. But what happened is they have this thing going on with hundreds of people. They had a group they were traveling with. So when you have 10, 15 people who are about to call the cops, you got to go figure out where your daughter is. You got to get it under wraps. You got to keep the grift going. You can't have your whole thing exposed and be charged with fraud. Okay? You have to somehow flip it. And Dee and Gypsy were there together. So Gypsy, if Gypsy had just waited till after the convention, let's just imagine Dee and Gyp are sharing a room. Okay? If she had just waited till people were not trying to hang out with them, she could have snuck off with a guy at night and no one would have known. But what happened is she did it during the meeting when people are looking for her. And so then they go upstairs and they find her in a room with 6 people, 6 men, older men. So Dee already knows that this is Gyp. She knows, but she's with a group of people who could expose their whole thing. And so then those people are frantic. They're the ones about to call a whole scene, and Dee's trying to contain it. Now, if you were Dee in that situation, what would you do? You have a thing going on, you have income coming in, and you've been playing this role for a while, and Gyp's about to blow the whole cover off because she's got to do it during the day, can't be smart about it, can't do it at night, can't just sneak out at the 2 a.m. She's got to do it, in the middle of the day. So you're Dee, what would you do? Well, if you're trying to get people not to call the cops and not to report her missing and not to create a big scene, well, you'd have to go find her with the friends because they're looking for her. And then they open the door, and then there's Gyp with 6 older men about to have an orgy or doing stuff already. We don't know exactly who was dressed, who was undressed, but they said that Gyp was undressed or mostly undressed, and the other guys were too. That's the impression that was given by people who attended this convention, who knew what happened. So again, we don't care that Gyp wanted to have an orgy. Okay, that's her thing. We care about the fact that she took that experience knowing in her mind, she knows that she almost blew their cover. This isn't just mine. She knows the truth. She knows she almost blew their cover and that Dee had no choice. I mean, she still had a choice. You could have just let it be exposed. But if you're trying to contain it, you'd have to be like, oh my gosh, she's underage, leave her alone. You'd have to make Gypsy the victim is what I'm saying. If you're trying to save face to all those 15, we don't know how many people were with Dee looking, but it was more than just a couple people. They all knew Gypsy. We're talking about hundreds of people that know Gypsy, who've clapped for her, who look out for her, who feel sympathy for her. She's just poor, innocent little victim, right? They're protecting her. So, of course, Dee had to create a little bit of a frantic scene and be like, oh, no, what are you doing? And also, but it also could be too, was possibly Dee was worried about Gypsy getting STDs. Gypsy was obviously not being smart about what time of the day she was sneaking out, and not even doing it with one guy, doing it with 6 older men. So she wasn't being smart about it if she's trying to keep her cover with the convention and the whole thing they had going with the wheelchair. But also what if there were what if there was no protection being used? What if Dee walked in, she sees there ain't no protection, it's just a mess, and then all these friends are behind Dee, guys. Now, Dee already probably knew that she's going to walk in on something, but the friends, imagine their horror. They open the door and they think that 6 men are about to SA Gypsy. That would have been the impression in their minds. And they probably would have called the cops or something. And, Dee had to be like, oh, no, she's underage. I don't know what she told you, but she's underage. She was saving face. But did they go back to the room? Now, this part, we know that this actually happened. And we have factual testimony of people who witnessed this. But what we don't know is what happened after this when Dee and Gyps finally got a moment alone together or were in their room together. And I can just imagine and theorize that the conversation may have gone like this. Gypsy, you almost blew our cover. What were you thinking? Like, why can't you sneak in at night? Or like you did this during the day? And why can't you just do one guy your age? Why you gotta do 6 older guys? And Chip, what are you thinking? You already have enough health things going on and you're young. You're gonna get STDs. You don't know these guys. They weren't screened beforehand, And just so you guys know, a lot of women who are into this type of thing, they have groups. And I know this because I've done so much research on understanding like what this would have interplay, how it's supposed to operate. Because I didn't really understand, but women who are into that specifically, they will have groups that are screened and that have to do weekly STD checks. And then they meet up and do these things together, but it's like a group. And I don't know like specifically what groups there are, like Facebook groups or what, but Dee would have probably been worried, like, Gypsy, do you even know these guys? Were they screened? Do you have proof that they don't have STDs? What if they had AIDS? What if you'd gotten HIV? Girl, you weren't even using protection. What are you thinking? And that is what I'm sure Dee was saying. Now, Chip didn't like this. In my opinion, just judging off of how she talks about her mom, she thinks that her mom, trying to protect her from getting an STD is her being overprotective. But really, any parent would have reacted the same way. You see your 20-something-year-old in a room with guys that have no protection, that are older. You have no idea if they have any STDs, if they've got herpes, if they've got scabies. I mean, there's so much stuff out there, you guys. And imagine if Gyp did get an STD, or if she had gotten like a serious one, she wouldn't be alive today. Like if she had gotten some type of, AIDS and I mean, there's just so much that can happen. She could lose her fertility too. Like you can get gonorrhea and STDs that, from what I understand, I'm not a doctor, but they can ruin your chances of ever having a baby. So, I mean, yeah, I think Dee was looking out for Gypsy and trying to be like, girl, I know you have urges. I know you want to just hook up with guys, but you got to be smart about it. And this is what, in my opinion, the dynamic with Dee. This is why, to me, it sounds absurd that if you look at the facts, now if you're only listening to Gypsy's words, that it'd be like, okay, she unalived her mom because she had romantic fantasies and she wanted to fulfill them. But then when you look at the facts, you realize she had many sexual experiences. Okay, and girl was diving deep. She wasn't just like hooking up and going to second base and be like, oh, I had my first, No, she was having full-on experiences that even most adults never do. She was going deep. So she had some stuff, and Dee knew this about her daughter. But in my opinion, Dee just wanted girl to date someone her own age, fall in love, do whatever she wants with the guy, but, don't try to get with married guys. Don't try to. And I think this was Dee's thing, was like she experienced this with Rod, where he did have other women in his life, and then they divorced and he got with Christy, and she's probably trying to tell Gypsy, girl, I just want you to, not take a man from another woman. Like, can't you just find a single guy your own age? And this would be the normal response, in my opinion, of like any parent who just really wants a less drama and the best for their children, and also for their children to have a good name and a good, like in the dating world, having some type of reputation for someone who's loyal, someone who could be a long-term partner. I think this is what Dee wanted for Gypsy. Now, in my opinion, Gypsy does not like being told what to do or being controlled. And even if her mom let her have hookups in Dee in the sheds, all those sheds they had out in the back where those forests were, they're really far away from neighbors. They're hidden. They're by the trees. We have no idea what the inside of them looked like, but we do know at least that one Star Wars shed was hooked up. Like, Dee spent a ton of money decorating the inside of it. And it's really sad that no one took photos of those other sheds, because that would have been really insightful as to where Gypsy would hook up. Because remember that video on MPG Cornerstone where girl is talking to Nick on the video. She does not show the shed in the driveway. No. She shows Nick the greenhouse and that gray shed, her Star Wars shed, as good places to hook up. And then also the farm across the street. That's what she says is a good hookup spot, not the one in the driveway. So why did they take a picture of the one in the driveway? Guys, I don't get it. So in my opinion, Dee's legacy, this is where we gotta really just look at the whole thing. You can't just look at one thing Gypsy says. You have to look at the whole thing, and that's what we're doing. But unfortunately, like, mainstream media is not doing that yet. And then people who barely, bounce off the surface of Googling Gypsy, they may not know that this happened and that Gyp almost exposed their whole plan and their whole thing. Now, let's just imagine that if Dee had reacted differently, would her friends have called the cops on these guys? Possibly. And then other stuff would have come out, and then Gypsy's real age would have come out, and then everything would have come out, and then they would have been charged with possible. They might have both ended up in prison. You get what I mean? For other reasons. Now, did Gypsy, let me know what you guys think. Did Gypsy really unalive her mom to have sexual experiences? Or was she already having them and Dee was just trying to get her to be more careful? And the real reason she unalived her mom is something else. Something mirroring the current Gypsy, 2025 Gypsy. The Gypsy who is at a concert, and rather than getting herself and getting the guy on stage, she mostly is checking herself out in the camera. Does girl just really love to be on camera and on TV? Well, watching Gypsy, I'm sure she will end up telling on herself somewhere, sometime, because girl does tell the truth within the lies. She does. She really does. Now, happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there. Big hugs. Give yourself a big hug. And we'll see you later. Kisses. Ciao.